And hello, everyone. Hello, everyone, and hello, Shannon. Hello,
Hello.
Paris.
Hello. Hello
What
again.
what an amazing time and what an amazing topic in what an amazing environment, right?
Yes, yeah. Both cities. I mean, where you guys are at in Miami. I mean, it's got a lot going on in Miami for the summer. Kind of iconic, actually.
Yeah, it is. Especially we live in this old
South Beach,
district, like South. Yeah, South Beach, but it's also the how you call this art
Art
district,
Deco.
Art Deco. Bravo,
Art
yeah, Art
Deco.
Deco. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of like
Very
full of
cool.
that rich history of the beginning of Miami, right? So it's kind of like
hmm
cool. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
It's true.
And I'm in the ninth arrondissement of Paris.
Ooh.
So it's near Moulin Rouge and near, which is also very iconic and old, and then near the famous neighborhood Marmont. I say it,
Oh.
my accent's horrible with it, but Marmont, something
Yeah.
like that. But it's up in the hills and it's really cute. And that's where I found like the gluten-free bakery, just all these really old, beautiful neighborhoods.
That's so
Yeah.
nice.
Seeing dogs walking. And one thing I noticed, Sasha,
Yeah.
there's lots of dogs here that are walked without a leash in the city, and they
Oh.
stay by their owner.
That's actually very interesting because
Yeah.
maybe this I don't know what might be their reason for the people to kind of like trust, not to trust, but to have a control over their dogs or to trust their dogs so much that they are able to gamble with that because you need only one time
Right.
to get that happen, and that
Yeah.
might be the last time. So I would kind of in a urban city I would never take my dog without a
Recommend that.
leash. Yes,
That's what I
because
thought. Yeah.
yeah,
I
because
was
you
like,
never
oh,
know. Or
right.
on
If
the other
something
side,
triggers them or anything. Yeah.
as we already talked, some of the techniques and some of the teaching, some of the training methods can go so far that they actually just freeze the dog in time and space, and they just never ever think about moving anywhere away from the owner. But that's not
Mm,
a love that we are actually looking for. That's not a respect that's not a
right.
respect that we are looking for. That's actually that blind obeyness, blind. It's not even unconditional love. It's far away from that. And then as you sow, so shall you reap. And then when
Yeah.
we find when we have that's very the relationship with the dog is a how you say that two-sided sword, right?
Right.
Can you say that?
Yeah.
Because
Double
often,
edged.
yeah, because oftentimes what we put out, we get back, and it's not
Yeah.
necessarily it's coming from the same source. So if
Yeah.
we emotionally abuse dogs because we think we are doing the right thing, what we think, and we pursue it's best for my relationship with the dog, including that I'm kind of like training my dog and putting the collars of all kind of chokes and those prongs and electric collars, and it's not a big deal, it's just a little. No, it's an abuse. And then when I end up in abusive relationship, I keep asking myself, I'm good to everyone and I'm nice to everyone. However, somehow there is some abusive manipulator and narcissist in my relationship that I don't know how did I glued to this guy or to this girl.
So even if
Well,
you're not directing it at that person or at that dog, if you're putting that out there, it can come back in
somewhere
your
else.
sphere another way.
Yeah, then
Oh,
that's we are completely confused. Like where all this reality of mine is coming from, you know?
yeah. I loved our episode last week. For those joining this week, last week we talked about the law of reciprocity and give and take
Hmm.
and how that works with our dogs and also how that works in our human relationships. Like just
Hmm.
because it works the same no matter what. I
It's
found it so interesting. I continued to think about it as we went on because a lot of times I don't feel like we're empowered to think that we can correct that the way that we talked about last week. And so I thought that was like really empowering and really enlightening. That, you know, there's options of how you can try to correct something if someone's caused pain and suffering, or if you've caused pain and suffering, that there does need to be a correction to keep things harmonious. And if not, or someone's not willing to do that, then that can change the dynamic of the relationship or end it altogether. And that's maybe the way you pay back the suffering. So then that leads into, we started talking what parlays into this week, which is we're talking about emotional support versus emotional abuse. So specifically when an animal is the difference between an emotional support animal and a service animal. And then when that line can get blurry to being unhealthy.
Well, can you hear me?
Oh, you froze, so I didn't hear that.
Oh,
I just said there's a whole lot of branches that we could go from that. I don't know where you want to start, but
Yeah. Let's start from there. Like, why would we need an emotional support? That's a very important thing, and dogs are pretty good prey for that. And I would say prey because they seems like loving us unconditionally. However, that love is based on real deep understanding of the laws of nature and interconnectedness of the species, where the dogs depends on humans. And that's why the interaction in between dogs and humans is very, very same as interaction in between kids and parents, right?
Because they're dependent on us for their survival.
They're dependent on us, but that's perfectly said, right? And now when we are going through some hardship, and this is the great place maybe to dig a little more in this primary and secondary and entangled emotions, because that is what we need when we are going through some hardship, experiencing a primary emotions that we can really use to connect with our deeper self, because that's our experience of the life. When we face some event in our life that can cause some feelings or some emotions that are not easy to stay in, but are crucial for our growth, right?
Right.
And then what happens, because it's too let's say painful or unpleasant to go through that experience, then we tend to run away from that into the layer of the secondary emotions that are covering this primary because they're easier to cope with. We can come into an example of that, but I just want to stay there at the moment. What we need when we are going through the primary emotions, because the healings always happen on the experience of the primary emotions.
And what would you call the primary? What would you call the primary emotions?
For example, it can be a fear, sadness. I'm just kind of like reading it from my. I prepare myself here so I don't get lost in this. Which one belongs where? So it's, for example, fear, sadness, anger, joy on the other side as well, but also disgust, shame, and surprise. Right, being disgusted with something, like when I hear something, when I experience something disgusting that makes me be of shame of who I am, then I don't want, I just want to froze there because I don't want know what, so I move in some other emotions that are easily to cope. But when that's why we are going to a therapist later on in a life, and every single therapy has only one purpose. They're using a different techniques and different teachings, different techniques, but it's a one person to get us back to a primary emotions where actually the healing happens. Embracing those emotions and understanding that it's safe to experience because that's life.
Yeah.
And
but if you're not taught that, like if you didn't grow up in an environment where it was safe to express emotions, or your caregivers didn't really teach you about emotions, they're pretty scary. Like you feel like you can die sometimes. But if someone is there to help you, like learn how to regulate or explain to you that it's okay to have a feeling, let it out, cry, whatever, and it will pass, then I think you learn how to manage your emotions. But I don't think a lot of people get that. So
that's another very important thing is that we need the right support. Through the primary
right.
emotions, you cannot go by yourself, because the inner feeling of my fear for my life and the interaction with the event, that event that's actually happening, it's so kind of like that's why we are social animals. We are social
Yeah, yeah,
creatures,
yeah.
because
Yeah, and
we need a support when we are going through the experience of the primary emotions. But very important,
right.
we need the right
Yeah.
support.
Right, support.
So what's
Like this
just
is
just
something
let
that I
please just let
oh,
me kind of make here what does it mean, a right support, and then you will immediately see how easy it is to slip into experience of the secondary emotions, because everyone by our side is feeling sorry for us going through that experience. For example, if someone dies to us, or we experience some tragic, we are part of the tragic, some accident happens, something like, so there is a lot of emotional events coming from that experience, and we have immediately everyone around us trying to tell us how, oh, I'm so sorry for you, I'm so sorry for your loss, I'm so sorry that you're going. No, what does it mean, sorry? What you are sorry exactly for my possibility to grow, to really find a way to develop my emotional intelligence. Are you sorry for that? What are you really sorry about? And then when the people, what happens and then that inner self is surrounded with this support, that at one point you feel empowered by, oh my God, I'm not alone. The people really love me. The people are really around me. So what we are tend to do is to remain in a place where everyone loves us, when everyone is around us. So the right, and that's what coming is, the one that needs support is always the one that the people supporting feeling somehow empowered over. I'm now in a good place, and you, for example, or let's go vice versa. I'm in a bad place, and then now I'm small, little, I feel like, oh my God, I don't know where to go, what to do. And I have friends coming towards me and say, oh my God, I don't know how you're handling this. It's so sad. I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for this accident. I'm so sorry for whatever things happen. And now I feel, oh my God, I didn't have this support when I was not going through this experience. So maybe this is the right place to be, because the only way to experience support is when you have a hardship. But in order to survive, now I need to cover that hardship with a secondary emotion that's much easier to experience. And that's what leads us into entanglement. That's what leads us into everything else. What is the right support? The right support is, I'm here for you. I'm by your side. But you need to go through this. You need to experience life. You need to be for who you are at this moment, and to find the biggest strength within to get out from this bigger than you were before. So I'm not here instead of you. I'm not sorry for you. I'm actually proud that you can do it. And I'm proud if you need support, whatever the support means to you. And then you said, but I'm afraid. And I hear you. And it's okay to be afraid, because that's the right thing to be. How would you feel differently when my mom died? The only emotions I was able to go through were the sadness and grief. And if I said, I'm really sad she died, the child can experience loss of parent 2 times in a life. It's only one time that it happens. But that's the biggest loss the child can experience, no matter which kind of relationship it had with our parents. The mom died. And then the grief was also very amazingly big, because I really had a strong relationship with my mom. But then as I understood that I should remain being sad and remain being grief in that state of grief, that helped me overcome that and find a place for my mom in my heart. And then now to understand, then whenever I need her, I can talk to her in my heart, and I do feel her support and her strength. Otherwise, I would just brush it under the carpet, because the child, it's not easy to live with the grief of losing a parent.
And I hear
had my
you.
teacher.
What I was trying to say earlier, though, Sasha, is a lot of people don't experience that. So in theory, I totally agree with you. I get it. I lost my dad, and I don't know how it is in your culture, but in the Western culture, there's not a lot of infrastructure for grief or sadness or hardship or pain. So we have this phenomena of really just kind of bypassing it all. And we'll be there for the moment. Like, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like you said, the funeral, the 2 weeks leading up to the funeral, like that. And then you're left with kind of like, deal with it. And pain makes people very uncomfortable. Like, they don't know if you say, I'm so sad, like, when you lost your mom and you say, like, I'm so sad. I'm so, like, a lot of people struggle to hold space for other people's pain because they don't know how to deal with their own. And I mean,
perfectly sad.
I mean, so you're like, if you try and you watch on the other side, because they're uncomfortable to deal with emotion or feelings, then you withdraw again and you feel isolated because you were vulnerable enough to share, and then it like hit a wall, and like that creates these other emotions like, oh, now I feel like a burden. Now, like, what do I do? Oh, is this a bad feeling to have? Am I not supposed to feel this way? Blah, 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 blah. And then I think that's where that's kind of created this space for emotional support animals or things like that, because we've created such an individuation in our society that we don't have a place to go for these things. Like, so it's either a therapist or a dog, or it's somewhere else, because we've lost the natural connection of how we support each other in our pain and in our struggle to the other side.
Yeah, there is very interesting way when you said now we are moving towards therapists, right? And having a support in the therapy that is a therapist that is like a very much certified and has all of these ages of learning how to do it theoretically, things like that. But the Bert Hellinger had a very, very nice theory that it's not a theory. It was like his observation working in the family structure and a systemic constellation. So his observation and his theory never was a hypothesis first and then proven in a field. It went opposite direction. He noticed the movement, and then he was trying to give a words to that.
Right.
So he always said, like, for example, he said about addiction, because he was working a lot with addiction, of course. And he said, like, the right way, the right support to anyone experiencing addiction is to get it from the therapist that has a good relationship with the father. Because,
how can you know that, though?
No, I'll just tell you. Because the coping mechanism of a child experiencing a bad relationship with the father is to choose a therapy as a calling, to become a therapist, to heal itself first through learning about a theory of pain and theory of the soul suffering. But oftentimes the therapist itself should ask themselves, am I doing this because I healed myself, and now I'm ready to heal the world because I'm experienced in this path? Or I'm still healing my inner child through the clients?
Right.
And he said the real support of the people going through addiction need to come from the strong father support, because the reason for the addiction itself is not accepting the father. The people that are trying the people that are going through the addiction, they have he said you can never generalize, but in 99% you always need to see the kind of the
Yeah.
unique perspective, right? But in 99% of the people he worked with, it was always why the people are turning to become an addict, because they wanna neutralize, they wanna kill the father within. And that is why
Wow.
we are choosing all kind of drugs because that's using drugs is actually gambling with a life. You never know when you're gonna try to find the harder one, or when you're gonna come to a point of
Yeah.
overdosing yourself. But what are we actually killing in ourselves? We are killing the father. And then they said like
That's deep.
it's very deep. And now if you want to really have a support from someone, you need to get a support from one that's completely in line in a relationship with the father. That
Is
through
that
the therapy,
male or female, or just with males?
no, with everyone.
With everyone. So it's directly related to the relationship with the father.
Yeah, it says, again, you always need to observe it from the individual level. But now when I talk, everyone that has a trouble with addiction can look at that, right? And you see yourself deep, oh my God, am I really having a good relationship with them? No, I don't. And then you kind of like, and why that's important? Because that's a foundation of our life. The strength, why we are choosing the drugs, because we are not able to face the reality of the life, and we want to blur it up. We don't want to see it, and then we end up in these trips, in this movement that happens when we are consuming the drugs, and then we blur our reality of the life because we are not strong enough to face it. And in order to face the life, we need a strong father support in our life. And you can get it through the therapist, but only through the therapist that has a strong relationship with their own father. And it can be a male or female, but that would be a requirement. And often, he said also, oftentimes, the people that tends to gravitate towards addiction would be a females as a therapist that doesn't have a good relationship with the father. And this is an open calling as well. Like it's not my thoughts. I'm just talking about I think it's a book called Love Hidden Symmetries, and you can read a lot about the work of the Bert Hellinger. And also he has a very nice podcast and book called Art of Helping. The Art of Helping, where he said that's important to be there for the people at the right time so they can experience primary emotions without slipping into a secondary and then from that into entanglement, because the place where actually healing and the life growth and emotional intelligence development happens is through the experience of the primary emotions. And here I found like what the primary emotions go from, for example, joy. When we experience joy from event that we experience. So the emotions are always triggered by outside force. So something happened around us, right? And then we look for our place according to that event. Okay, so the event can be joyful event around us, and we experience joy. And then how do we feel? We can feel hopeful, but then again, when we joy, that we, for example, for no matter what reason, we can allow ourselves to be joyful, right? So what becomes a secondary emotion of the joy? It's I become hopeful, I become proud, I become excited, and I become delighted. All of those other feelings are running away from the pure joy because I don't know how to enjoy joy. When I, for example, I experience fear. And then if I don't remain in the fear because it's fearful to remain there, but it's also a place for growth, I become anxious, insecure, inferior, or panic. So those are the secondary emotions if we are not able to cope with the fear. Anger, I'm angry, and I'm not going through the experience of the anger by observing my inner anger and running away from that. I develop resentment, hate, envy, jealousy, annoyed with the people or with events. Sadness, if I experience sadness, for example, and I can't let myself remain in the primary emotion sadness, it says it transfers itself in the secondary emotion of shame, neglectfulness, depression, guilt, or isolation. All of that starts from sadness. If I'm sad, I don't go to the people because I'm ashamed of me being sad. And then I isolate myself. But both of those actions and feelings are secondary emotions. And the surprise, for example, I become surprised with some event that happens around me. And if I don't remain surprised, I can be shocked. This D-I-S-M-A-Y-E-D, steht da?
Dismayed.
Confused. Which one you said? Dismayed, bravo, I just didn't know how to read it. Confused or paralyzed. So all of those emotions and actions of the emotions that are connected, and then from that secondary emotions, then we end up into entanglement and the emotions that we are kind of actually why we are experiencing a secondary emotions, because our brain is telling us the same. If you fear, then you become anxious. Why? Because it's in a system. Someone else become anxious when they experience the fear. Someone else become resentment or hate or full of envy and jealousy when they experience the anger. So you don't talk about anger. You compress the anger and you become a jealous person. You compress the anger and you hate the world. You compress the anger and you become annoyed by everything. Can you? So, and then...
Yeah, no, I totally get it.
So now going to the joyful and the fearful, anger, sadness, surprise, all of those emotions as the primary ones, going through that experience, we need the right support. And since we don't have a real friends around us, not that we don't have, the people, as you said, they would love to help us, but they don't know how to help themselves, like how they can help others.
Yeah, I mean, again, we connect this to last week. We talked about when someone lies, it's usually tied to like a reason how they survived in their childhood. Maybe it wasn't safe to tell the truth or whatever. So they developed a coping system of lying to do that, to get by. And now they still do it with you. And it's not okay. But until they're willing to face it and work through it, that's on them. That's their responsibility to go back and work through that so they can
and that's very
live
important.
Differently. And so this is like, now we're talking about different emotions, like we're talking about different things. So if people aren't given the space or the support to have pain, to have sadness, to have anger, and are not given the guidance to know how to have those emotions. Like I mean, I would say for sure, like I was afraid of anger for a long time, anger and sadness. I think sadness was interpreted as weakness. You know, like you're weak, and like it's like don't be a baby, and even as a girl, you know, it was like don't be a baby, suck it up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, whatever. And anger, I saw so many people hurt people when they were angry. When I would have a feeling that I now understand was anger, I didn't really know what to do with it because I didn't want to hurt people. So I'm sure it got displaced in other ways because I was afraid to act on the emotion because I didn't want to do what I had seen, what had been modeled. So it is very complicated and complex when, you know, we're not really in a society anymore that is comfortable having uncomfortable feelings. We drink, we smoke, we have sex, we watch movies, we binge, we do whatever we do to avoid ourselves. And then we get a dog or something to have that kind of safety feeling, connection, whatever. And then we probably dump too much on them.
Yep. And that's actually where it becomes like it doesn't help. Having a dog from the wrong reason doesn't help neither human having the dog, neither dog. Right. And that the price for doing that is much harder than you can imagine. And that's where I said like, emotional support animals are not only one-way street of emotional abuse, of what happens in between projection of the emotions that goes from the humans to an animal, but it's also the double-way street. It turns back to an emotional abuse of myself because I make myself in need of someone to fix my job, to do what's mine to do. right? So I become abusive to my own progress and possibilities and path. And I see
Right.
all of these companies now that are advertising emotional support licensing, and the dogs need to be taken everywhere because the people are afraid, the people are anxious. But you see, it's easy. It's easy when you observe the world and when you have a support and a therapist that can guide you through this. And you said, I'm anxious. I'm
Yeah.
anxious in my life, or I'm insecure, inferior, or I panic. It's
Yeah.
because all of those are the secondary emotions that are covering the fear. Fear can be mine, or it can be inherited from my mother, my grandmother, my great
Yeah.
grandmother, 7 generations in behind. Because I don't know, the Holocaust is just 100 years ago. The
Right.
people experiencing
Yeah.
real trauma, going through the real events, it's not something that we are going through now, but those memories we got through the DNA. The people, as you said, like that,
Yeah.
uh,
Epigenetics.
uh,
Like
epigenetics, and
epigenetics.
it's
Like we
kind
don't
of
know
like,
how much we is from nurture, nature, or just generational passed down in our DNA.
so having an emotional support animal will actually just keep us in the state of anxiety, of insecurity, of inferiority and panic. And we will never be able to come to the root of the moment and face the fear. That not necessarily need to happen. We just need to become a conscious of that.
Right,
That
that's what I was gonna say.
healing.
It's like how we can become codependent in our relationships, our romantic relationships, or our friendships. We don't
And
want to have that entanglement with them, just like we don't want to have that with our dogs.
I had one wonderful line of thoughts that slipped my mind. What says like, I guess slipped again. Sorry, it was like I just wanted to say this because it sounded very interesting, but then I slipped again. Okay, I'm sorry. I then don't. I'll just
Well,
jump in.
I'll just bring it up because I was talking about codependency because there's so many analogies between our relationships with dogs, our relationships with ourselves, and our relationships with others. So if we don't get okay with sitting with uncomfortable feelings, we will tend to use substances or people or other things to cope and avoid
Because
dealing or numb.
it's easier.
It's
It's
easier.
easier, but it's not better. It's not for
Yeah.
good. It's the
Path of least
price.
resistance, we
Yeah,
say.
the price to be paid is much higher on coming on later,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
taking us in this I survive, and that's actually what we are doing. We are laying the same model to coping with the primary emotions for our
Yeah.
kids. If we are not dealing with these emotions, it's our responsibility as a grown-ups, especially as a parents, to go through these experiences, to face the life the way it is, not to suck it up. It's not the way suck it up and move on. No, that's not the right support. The right support is you can do it on your own pace. Just don't
Yeah.
escape it. And
Well, I
you know
know.
what?
And
Like,
feel it. Like, give them the second to feel it. Like, I mean, that I think would help people so much just to say, like, you're
oh,
sad. Let
there is
them
the one.
be
There is the
sad.
one. There is the thoughts. I'm sorry, you're right, but there is
Okay.
my line of thoughts. When we said like, I really love you for who you are, and that includes that you lied to me because that's your way of coping as a coping mechanism of
Yeah.
survival. I do
Yeah.
understand, and I just don't want to play that game. So if I really love you, and I say, okay, at this point of my love for you is so big that I can accept you the way you are. But then I see myself moving away. The right support for that person will be in that pure love to go away from them and give them more space. Maybe I need to move out from the house. Maybe I need to move out from the city. I need to move out from the country. I need to find my way somewhere else, far away. As much as distance I need to give, as you said, give them distance. But the distance is also a support. Going away is also a support.
Yeah.
When the mother tells to her son, today is the day when you need to pack your stuff and go out from the hotel, mama, it's the way to support the growth of the young man or the young girl
Yeah.
that won't look for the hotel mama in his relationship and next time in his marriage and wherever. So the right support sometime is going away. That's
Right.
healing for the
I know.
relationship.
And I think that needs to be told more or taught more. Like that we have this whole mantra like never give up or quitting's a failure or that kind of thing. And again, it's like pointing out the difference. There's a spectrum of what's the difference between I'm giving up too soon because I didn't try hard enough, and giving up is not giving up, it's redirection, it's pivoting, it's because this isn't healthy. And having more conversations to help us recognize the difference. And because that quitting something that's bad for you is really a good way to move on in your growth and evolution. But if you hold on to this belief like you're a failure then to quit a marriage or quit a job or, quit something like that, then you can stay in things way too long and get more entangled trying to figure out how to stay in it versus recognizing the consciousness of, because that's what I was going to say, when you're talking about the person and moving away from them. Like if you said, I understand you lied to me because this is a coping strategy you did or whatever. If someone's not conscious, they do not want to hear that.
Yeah, but it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, like, to be able to have that as a working dynamic, both parties have to be willing and open to accept that about themselves and each other. But if you're not, then that gives you in the predicament of, like you said, like moving away, because then they need to deal with that in some way. And if you don't allow them, then you're then handicapping them. You're enabling them to not feel the pain, not deal with what they need to deal with to move past it.
And not only that you're going to handicap them, you are handicapping yourself. Like we are handicapping ourselves. And that's the price we need to pay for remaining at the place where we do not belong anymore. Yeah. And it's not anymore. It's kind of like
that's so awful. Like my story, but that was like the hardest thing for me was, when you do start really looking at the choice you made and why you made it, it's like, it hurts. Like it's so much not about blaming them. You're like, so like, oh my God, with yourself. But it's beautiful because then you can make the changes.
Yes. And it's just the really life-changing events are just actually, it's not a step away. It's just awareness away. Nothing more than awareness we need in order to, change our life 180. It just kind of not to go to the other direction, but start moving towards the right direction.
I know, but I'm going to use my example as like if in case anybody else can relate to this. I was brought up with that belief to never quit. I was raised by a basketball coach, right? So it's like you keep going, you push through, right? And so I took that into everything, and I would tend to stay in things and keep trying harder because I thought that I was being weak or I wasn't trying hard enough or whatever. So, but in a relationship, if the other person is not willing or able or have the capacity to address.
I need a charger. I'm sorry. Wait. No, my battery is gonna. Thank God. Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
If they're not I would be confronted with this idea of like ending the relationship, and I would feel like that was me being a quitter because I'm going from the coaching sports analogy mindset, right? So I would or maybe I'll communicate a different way, or maybe I'll lean back and give them space, or maybe I'll lean in and try to be more like I was just doing every kind of pretzel dance move possible to try to make it work because of the belief that if you quit, like it's a failure, instead of recognizing. And I also had hoped that he might be willing to do the work on himself. And so he could recognize that some of these behaviors and these things were, something he could take responsibility for, that I wasn't like blaming like but the behaviors and stuff in and of themselves were not okay. It's like you said, I love you enough that if I can work through things with you just like you can work through things with me. But if they're not willing to, it's hard. Because then you have to say that if you were raised with this belief of like, don't quit. Oh my God. And that's so much the region that I grew up in is don't quit. And people stay in things so much longer because that belief, that ingrained kind of subconscious belief that that's like the better thing to do. and
Yeah,
suffer, and like your
don't.
reward will be in heaven kind of thing,
Yeah,
like
I
there's
so.
some reward for suffering.
Yeah, it is, and then you remain in a place of suffering.
Martyr victimhood. Yeah, no. And I didn't believe that, but I also struggled with this. They were like opposing beliefs. They were contradictory beliefs. Like, I
No,
don't want to be a victim. And I also am told I'm not supposed to quit, but my partner's not willing to like look at some of these unacceptable behaviors and heal with me. So you're left to like be the one to pull the trigger. And I get it now and understand it better now, like with time passing. But I think it's a really hard thing in general for people to do. And just to have that compassion for ourselves and compassion for each other, that it is a hard thing to extract yourself from something when you really love and care, whether it's a parent, a sibling, a partner. And then if you don't have a support system that can help you navigate through that, then you do tend to look for something like, a dog, or, I mean, God forbid, hopefully people can afford therapy. Like, that's a good alternative, but like ways to work through those and process all that stuff.
Yeah, it's very interesting to say when we entangle in that victim perpetrator dynamic, right? And we remain at that position a lot, and we don't move away from there. Actually, what happens is we become a perpetrator on our own because we pretend we can handle it. And then the other person thinks, so maybe this is the right way to do. This is why she's still here. And then we prevent them from wanting to change. Maybe it was very nice for me when I was able to say in one of my relationship, it was so kind of, I felt very grown and I felt very emotionally intelligently mature when I said, I love you so much for who you are that I don't need you to love you. I can love you with no you, right?
Yeah.
And that's the moment when you really know that you can love the person, because as we know in the family constellation separation ritual, and that if the law of giving and taking in love and in relationship is not consciously developed and taken care of, and I was talking about how do we build a better life every day, is that everyone is doing more good for the other one, but they keep doing good to each other, and then how the how the love grows.
Yeah.
Because in a separation ritual of the relationship that are past, what we need to go. I don't know. Did you do it? I think we did one. When you get together on the point of the biggest love you felt to a person that you separate from, right?
Yeah.
So come to a point where you love them the most, and after which point our life was going up, and that was so intense, and it was so nice and so great. And then one morning something happened, and then started to go down, and it was not like that, and not like that, and not like that, and everyone's starting down, because oh my God, it's so great, but just if he would change, he need to try harder, that's down. And why you are here? What are you doing to yourself? You become a perpetrator of the self. And which kind of universe, or the God, or call quantum physics reality, whoever you want to.
Oh, you froze a little bit. If he comes back. Okay. Okay, because I was like, I'm looking for a quote while people are here. I wanted to share this quote that I thought was really good. If I can find it. You know how that is? It gets buried in your stuff. Let me look here. I'll look at another place. Okay, so we were talking about. Okay. So, because for those people out there that are trying to be understanding, I thought this quote was really good, and it talked about Don't make a mistake. Don't make a mistake being so understanding that you overlook the fact that you're disrespected. I thought that was really interesting how, like, when he was talking about that starts to go down when you're in a relationship and you can feel the downward motion, and there's not enough up, right? Like, hopefully you're kind of like always like there's maybe a down and then you're going up, but you're overall continually growing stronger. But when you can tell it's going down and it's just going down, and you're not feeling the love, respect, and being valued anymore, then that's going to like a bad place, which inevitably will, explode at some point one way or the other, or implode rather, one or the other. But I thought this quote really spoke to me in terms of you're well-intentioned to try to understand people and understand their trauma and understand their hurt and be supportive. But sometimes then people can still overlook that they're being disrespected. Anyway, there's like so many nuances in this dance that the main thing that we can do is be conscious ourselves. I think that's really what it always comes back to, is knowing your own wounds, knowing your own triggers, and loving yourself and respecting yourself enough that if the person in your life or friend, boss, you name it, anybody, there is not loving you or treating you with a respect, you will trust yourself that you're, reading that correctly and then adjust accordingly. So whether it's having that difficult conversation and then paying attention to how they respond. So do they gaslight? Do they flip it on you? Do they get defensive? Do they blame everything else under the sun and not take any ownership or reflection of their self or their part in anything? And that's really tough, because if they can't see themselves or they're not conscious of their behavior or how they're hurting you or what they're doing, then you are left to make that choice for yourself. And I think that's really hard. That gets to be a really hard place. But then you start to recognize it. I don't know. I started reframing it in a way that it's not because they didn't love me or because they didn't care or because I didn't love them or support them, but rather the harmony that we're trying to have within us, we're not at the same level of consciousness or commitment to be able to like help each other heal and go to the next level. I just want to check in with you, Vedran. Are we off? Okay, because I didn't know if I should keep talking or if I should wait. Is that tracking? Is that because I think all of that goes into the ownership of that. Is the less we can rely on things on the outside of us for happiness, love, peace, the healthier we are going to be, the better choices we're going to make for ourselves, and the way that we'll give to people and animals and earth, everything in our life is going to be from a much more healthy, balanced place, because it's not trying to overcompensate or heal something. It's just literally from a pure place of being able to give, because you're able to give to yourself. Hi, Sasha. He's back.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So I got to have my little monologue for a little while there. Oh, now I can't hear you.
So here I am, and I was listening to you. My camera just shut off. My computer just got started.
Oh, so you could hear me though. Okay. Okay, good. So you know what I was talking about.
I hear you from Vedran. Do you hear me well?
I hear you well.
Okay. So what that's wonderful that you just said. I was inspired, and I say this is amazing, and I'm so proud of myself, I must say. We had that live podcast last time. You remember the one with entanglements and the reciprocities and everything. So I was very inspired. And just maybe in a week, I wrote a book, entire book, that I started to talk about. It's the name of the book is Interconnected. I don't know, did I told you that? I started to write it, and I had an introductory and chapters about, laying the foundation for, am I okay? Laying foundations to talk about this interconnected world, and talking about an order of harmony and how we interact with our other species. But what gives us possible right angle of interaction, if the inner interaction, interconnectedness of ourself with the self, right? Interconnected of the self with the body, interconnected of the self with the soul, interconnected of the self with the spirit, interconnected of self with the mind, and then also because all of those essences of the human experience are different. They have a different relationship. They operate on the different spectrum and different laws, right? The laws that work in the realm of soul are not applicable to the world of material realm where the physical body exists. The laws that operate within the spiritual world and the spirit around and the cosmos and cold and whatever you want, they are completely different than the one that operates on the energy level where the mind lives, right? So, and then how those different parts of the self and self-experience operate among each other. How we bring all of this diversity together, and how do we experience the life as a combination of such a diverse, complex apparatus, right?
Yeah.
That's where I have entire chapter about primary, secondary emotions, and the ones that I was just reading about now. I was just wanting to be really clear in that segment. I was really talking deep about this silent activism, right? Because that's exactly if we want to save the planet, and if we want to leave the planet as we know it today, or maybe better, should be better than it is like today in every sense. But if we want to really leave the mankind experiencing the life in this planet, we need to find a different way of acting and interacting among ourselves and with the planet itself, right? But it's not something that we can, for granted, make an active revolution on. Because if we act in a spirit of revolution, what we're going to bring is more harm to other people that disagree with us, to our planet on its own, because we are not taking a proactive, silent activism. The same way how the Gandhi was able to move away the British Empire from India without a single bullet.
No, I've noticed that a lot.
Within changes the world around us, and that's, again, it's like a therapist. I was talking about what makes me be angry when I see how the people treat environment. What makes me feel angry, and I feel this calling of proactivism in order to come out and advocate for the human rights and advocate for we have in the UN as a present in this world since the Second World War, and since the Second World War we didn't have a single day of peace in this planet.
Yeah, because how you go about peace is being at peace.
I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
How about you are not telling me? I'm talking for nothing.
Why? I can hear you.
Can I just a second? Let me try to do...
I can hear you.
The speaker is this one. Can you say something?
Hello.
Oh my God, yes, I can hear you now. I chose the microphone for the speaker, so I couldn't hear you. So I didn't know, did you just listen to me silently and passively?
I heard everything. And I was just trying to say on kind of what you were talking about, that is how you go about that activism and starts with the peace you have in yourself. And then you can bring that and change and create change, but you're coming at it from such a different place versus this rage and inner anger that creates more resistance and more rage and more
Yes,
anger. It's like physics, you know, it's like you're going to do
it
that if
is.
that's the energy you bring. And I've been watching that. I've been tuning into that so much lately, you know, with like friends or like people that I've been around, that as I've changed and I
Mhm.
feel so much more at inner peace with things and I've had more compassion towards myself. There's a lot of things I might not like in the world, but I view it through a lens of compassion. Like it's not
Mhm.
okay, but there's a lens of compassion. So it doesn't bring in me this like raw kind of feeling. It's like, wow, that's wrong. And I bet that's because this something has gone on. But then you approach it so differently with how you try to activate change.
It's exactly the same. How do you activate the change in your partner when he's not willing to change on its own for the good of the relationship?
Yeah.
You support his change by going away, giving a space for the people to see they're wrong, to see and to seek the healing on their own. Oftentimes, for example, we had
That
that was a
didn't
very
work for me.
interesting constellation.
My mine didn't want to seek change anyway, so the space I gave, they just, you know, that was just the end. So it's interesting how that all.
No, but also again, I'm telling you that again with the real authority because I saw that I saw a lot of relationship heal like that. Oftentimes, it's very bad way of re-engaging in the same relationship because you will sooner or later again seeing yourself with the different lenses. It's always good to move on. So do not. I tried that, and we kind of like ended up, sleeping the same peel of the banana. So it's kind of like, even though I had, I was married to my wife for 18 years, and then we divorced, and then we had a very like a beginning was very bad relationship. It was a time when I was just that relationship, actually the ending of my marriage, and then the second relationship I had after that was taking me to a path of the family constellation,
Mhm.
because I really needed to heal myself deep from within in order to be. And then I was just starting to feel better by implementing these things and everything. And then I ended up again with my wife, and we had like a year of, we had so much fun and joy, and we had, oh my god, we traveled the world. We were like going, we were I felt like again this joyful love that you have deep from within for someone. No, it's not only that she was a woman I loved, really, she was also a mom to my kids.
Right.
So that relationship is very sacred and on some other level very important to my life. And then I again saw it awakening, and it becomes alive and becomes refreshing and joyful. And then we had that life for 1 year. Exactly, it was like, you can name it. I think it was like September or something like that of 2016. No, 2015 till 2016. So that was 1 year of that relationship. And then September 2016, again, the same environment, the same triggers, the same devils of the past, the same banana peel on the street, and we both put our legs there, and then we split. And the relationship we have now is very mature. It's already touching the business sense of our us being engaged in the business together, parenting the best way we could, both on their level of the consciousness, but our relationship as a partners transcended that need for me expecting her to change and her expecting me to be the way she thinks I should be, right?
Mm.
And these both our life and relationship, especially when parenthood is in place, to some completely other. I can now see that even though we disagree on a lot of levels, I'm able to allow her to be the best mom she thinks she needs to be, and the way she thinks it should be done.
But it
And
ended.
then
But it ended. Ultimately, it ended. So like you had an ending,
you mean
and then
like
you went
we
back and
we don't.
tried. You gave it space, and you went back and tried again.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it was not meant to carry on.
not I mean like not meant to carry on like living in the same space,
Right.
sleeping in the same bed, eating the same lunches, things like that, led me to an amazing relationship. And my marriage that's now is just kind of one to, I don't know, like, what did I do in my life to deserve someone to be by my side the
Yeah.
way my husband is at the moment? But it's kind of like every single morning, and I see now this reciprocity in giving and taking. And if I do something bad, and he comes back and he makes me do something I don't like and I wouldn't do, and
He
I do it
does?
because it's kind of
Go, Vedran.
he
I love
does.
it. He's such a sweetheart. I
That-
would love to see that in action.
But then also what actually it's much more to our relationship is how each and every one of us try to make it better for the
Right.
other one. Like, and then that's how the relationship grows.
Yeah.
And that's how we do we have challenges? Yes. Do we have, but that's very interesting. Out from like 6 years or 7 years of our relationship, we are like 24/7 together.
Yeah.
Like everything.
I
We go to buy milk together because there is something to talk about there on that way. But what's very interesting there is to see that maybe handful days around all of those 6 years were something that I would regret going through, but also both us in the mornings and in the days that we understood how childish that behavior of some of two of us was. And then it was like, big smile on the face, a new cup of coffee with or cappuccino or whatever.
That's what you want. That's what you want.
So yeah,
that's really good.
So, when I talk about this, I talk it really from the level of experience and the way how the constellation and the dogs impacted my personal life and relationship on a lot of levels. And oftentimes, as I said, the only way this is what I wanted to say, the people, there was a constellation happening. It was not done by me, but I observed the outcome of that constellation. It was like there was a town that was starting to, I don't know, give a permit to some factory to release the water, the bad water, into the local big river, right? And the activists trying to protest around that, a big riot started to happen there. And then the fighting between the company leadership and the company employers, that started to bring a great sadness to the entire community, because that little city was literally very much economically dependent on that big factory there. And then there was a lady that's specialized in the family Earth constellation, and she came to the company and she said, we need to find some systemic solution to this. And then she took someone to be the main activist, the girl that was main activist for this activism of, we need to stop this, you must close this, you must close the factory, you can't pollute the river, things like that. She got to represent the river. So she was representing the river. Yeah. And then someone else was representing the CEO of the company, and someone else was representing the people working in the company. Someone was representing the people that agree with this. There's someone represent the people that disagree from the company. Someone represented the activists. And when the constellation moved around, the question to the lady that was head of the activists, she said, like, how do you feel? And she said, she started to cry. Because then the river was talking, right? Because that was a lady that was the head of the activist group wearing the shoes of the river that she's fighting for. And now the river responds to the constellation. He said, the only thing that's polluting me is anger that's happening in between the people that are fighting for myself in my behalf. So it's not ours to take a war on the places where the war is already there. Mm-hmm. And that silent activism would put us in a place, because if we are activists, we are acting as in behalf of someone that we think doesn't have a strength, courage, or tools to move out from the problem that he's facing. That's not the right support. That's actually taking away the humbleness, taking away the pride of the person and taking away the dignity of theirs. Because then we think they're small, too small to survive. And then we are in order of our own selfishness, that we feel good when we are in the role of activism and we are saving the world and someone else, we are taking a burden of the person that we are and that's the same, the burden for every one of us. It's not a burden, it's called destiny. It's called lessons. It's called cross. It's called what's mine here to experience, right? And that's where and that's also the activists are acting in behalf of someone or something. And also that's the same, the activism should be on the level of the therapy. We should be, as an activist, we should be a therapist to the cause that we fight for, or we want to change, or we want to impact with our activism with. And that's a question for every one of the people that are wearing the shoes of the activists. Ones that are thinking this is the right way to do it. It's just turn back and be honest to yourself with the answer of which kind of relationship you have with your parents, especially with the father. Because that is what puts us in the anger of injustice. Because we see injustice in the world and we go fight for that before even fixing our own inner child injustice, because that's too painful. So it's too painful for me to deal with my relationship with the father, and I want to go out in the world, fix the world first. It's not going that way. The world are going to be, and then as the river felt angry and poisoned, not by what's going out in the river, it's because what's going out in the river is that the river feel guilty because of the war going on in between people that thinks the factory should exist or factory shouldn't exist. Outcome of that constellation was that factory agreed to put in to look for the grants and to put in the highest possible and like a cutting edge, develop an amazing filtration system. So what was actually going out to the river was not as much polluted on the other side, not pollution at all. And then the way to recycle that middle product that's left after the products of for whatever should go to the river. And then the constellation was bringing the healing to the relationship in between the company, the management, the employers, the activists, and everyone, by a company raising awareness about her impacting the environment, and then looking for the solution, the cutting edge, the patented solution that no one else in the world founded, in order to bring peace and harmony in the community. The outcome of that was a clean river, the factory still working, the people of the community working in the factory, supplying the parents and the kids and everyone that depend on them with the money and the economical growth, and the activists in their own way of feeling responsible. But what was first needed to happen is for the war to stop.
Yeah.
That what was poisoning the river the most was the war in between ones who were fighting for the rights of the river. And that's what we see, as I said before my computer died, as I said, UN and this humility kind of helping saving the world and the poor. I would always direct my very big gratefulness. You probably know and heard, because you are the Catholic, like a Christian raised girl, so you know about Mother Teresa, right? She was working in Indian Calcutta, I think that was the name of Calcutta, yes, village in India, and she had a cemetery. It was a senate. How you call that? Where the priests are. She had a hospital, okay, for the people that were hospice was, right, for the people that were dying, right, and then for someone she's saint, and for the other she's corrupt monk that was using and misusing the funds that she was getting, because she didn't provide more to the people that were suffering, and she didn't provide more for them. So the problem of the ones that were criticizing her work was that she didn't do enough for the people to. And as a Christian, she said, my belief is that this suffering is for their soul, how you say, salvation. And from her point of view, she provided a place. She didn't call it hospice in a way of it was not a clinic to heal people. It was a place for the dignified and safe departure, for the dignified death.
Okay.
So what she did, she prayed with them, she talked to them, she was preparing them for the departure, she was preparing them for dying. And a lot of people that were experiencing going to those places, that's, oh my God, I never felt so much alive than now when I'm facing the death, with the right support. Because she gave them place to witness what's coming. She didn't blur it with the medicine and make them not being able to face their own destinies. And from the point of understanding and giving, I cannot prevent you from dying.
Right.
With a little more medicine or with a little other approach, we can use the tools of this modern world to make it be easier to prolong it for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But what will that bring? What will that physical interaction with the body bring to my peace of mind or peace to a soul? And that's again coming to a level of are you agnostic or you are believing in Christian, in Buddhist, whatever the ground found. There is always a belief system. Even if we are not believing in nothing, we believe that we don't believe. So it's kind of, I don't believe in nothing. So it's kind of, I don't believe in God, but then I believe that there is no God. That's a belief system on its own.
I had this conversation here.
Yeah, I think we did. But
someone who was talking about said that they were an atheist, and a lot of people say agnostic or atheist. But if you dig in and you ask, so this guy who said he was an atheist, I said, so what does that mean? And it was very interesting as you unpack it, that there is a belief in something. He just doesn't know what it is exactly. So
yeah, he's looking for the belief. He's actually looking for the proof.
It's usually
or disapprove to something.
It's usually a rejection of religion, not so much a belief in something bigger.
I in the book I'm writing about all of these religions, including the Satanism. So I wanted to really bring everything on the one point. And you said, like, how do you agree that you disagree?
Yeah.
So that's the most, and how you do not start a war against disagreement.
Yeah.
Because disagreement is a belief system, and you believe this is right and that's right. And how you merge those together in this world of interconnectedness, that's actually stop being aggressive towards different belief systems. And then I was talking about the Christianism and Judaism and all of these religions, but I also talked about the Satanism, because it's very important to understand how the Christian and Satanists sit together on the dinner.
It can, I know that sounds like so weird to say, but I mean, anything you're giving your power away to something, there's a fine line in honoring the teachings and, practices of something versus it turning into like you let it rule over.
That's the very important. And when you will be really able to let it be, the moment when you feel self and complete. Because for self and complete, you need nothing to agree with, as much as you don't need nothing to disagree with. So I'm able to sit on the table with a Satanist and Christian and everyone, because I do understand that their belief system is coming from their life experience.
Yeah.
And my perception of their life experience will be never enough or good to be able to criticize, even to agree or to disagree.
Well,
so when we said that's the path to the, and then you really know that you are fully self. When you are able to move away from the people you love, to give them space, to fail, to make it right, to do something, because sometimes the strength of the people, that inner push to the people happens when all of this support that they were thinking they need, or I'm thinking I gave, is away. And now they need to find another way to make it happen. And they're going to either succeed or not succeed, but everything of that would be an experience of this life. And that's the joy of life, is a living a life. That's the joy of life. It's not the fruits what we need to go after. It's a destiny we need to fulfill. And that's a path what brought us to the, and all, no matter what you believe in, no matter what you think you are, no matter what you think your job or your purpose is, those questions, who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go? Why I'm here? What have I done as of now with all of that in my life? Is sooner or later going to become something that's going to bother our thoughts one way or another. And that's only discovering the self, and the self is self-sustainable. That's why
I know, it's amazing. I mean, that's what I mean. I think it's such a different season of life when you get into that space, and it's different. You're not fighting to be understood. You're not fighting to be valued. You're not fighting to live, because you have that in yourself. And on a religious note, like, I find it so interesting that, you know, like, my faith still wants me to be in community with being able to worship or God or the teachings, but because I don't feel the need to fully subscribe to any one way or one church or one religion. It's interesting because it's like the flip side is they need you to be because they are. And so it's interesting to hold your space even as yourself and not feel like, even if they're judging you or misunderstanding you, to allow it, because you're okay with what it is you believe or what you're still on your journey of discovery or whatever. And it's really different. It's like, it's a really different page to turn to get on, that I don't need you to validate me. I don't need you to believe me. I don't need to convince you of anything. If you think I'm going to hell, okay, like, that's what you believe. That's okay. You get to believe whatever you want. It's none of my business, even if it's about me.
But it's very interesting to see that when you give yourself time to learn about diversity of the other faiths, for example, just use that. Like, you have a Buddhism, you have, let's say, Hinduism, you have Judaism, you have Christianity and Islam, for example. And if you give yourself time, as I did, to read, for example, Bhagavad Gita, or to read the Quran, or to read the Bible.
I mean, I didn't read all of those the same, but I did a lot of exploring in different religions, and it was like shocking how much it's all this similar.
That's what I wanted to say. As you go through the religion texts that are kind of foundation of the belief system, then I become a Hindu, I become a Buddhist, I become a Christian, I become a Muslim, because those books make sense, and whatever you give your attention to, it does make sense. Oh, these are the words of the God, and the Muhammad got them in a desert, and Jesus was a part of the God. But when you kind of read them within, it's a rule. Belief system that if you would, everything counts down to a moral standards, developing how to organize the group of the people to guide them with one belief system rather than individualities and that selfness within. But the self is, and then, you know, all of those wars in the name of the God, and I don't know how that makes sense. But the people would be if you don't believe in what I believe, then the God doesn't love you. As you said, you're going to go to hell and things like that. I see the world, and we are just unpacking this, and more and more people are thinking that the answer to everything is a self. Even when you read the Satanist scripts, you see that they are like kind of all around self and self-image and self-love and selfness. And now am I a Satanist by thinking all of this? Because individualism is what the Satanism is all about.
Well,
God.
What's similar though?
Just a second, because when we pray to the God, we said, "Oh God, let's be will of yours." And if you are reading the Satanist scripts, what they say, it's Almighty or whatever, or whoever they pray to, let me be will of mine. That's the difference. I want, and then what's the difference between me and self? It's a big, huge difference, because me is shaped by the environment. And me is always in the way of self. Self is a sparkle of God. Call whichever the God, intelligence, whatever, cosmos.
That's exactly what I was trying to say, was in the end, it's different language that we use but ultimately it's the same thing. So like I might choose to say part of myself is the God within me. But people get so tripped up by like, oh, you're a God. And I'm like, no, I'm not saying I'm a God. Like you could call it energy, like whether you call yourself spiritual, Christian, Buddhist, Muslim, or if you're new age, like there's different language, but they're all saying the same thing. And so it's like, find the language that works for you. That's fine. But we are all connected, and we have that part in us that is universally, whatever you want to call it. And when we are connected in that, and we are healed in that, and we are living from that place, it is the healthiest, abundant place we can be coming from.
Yes, and that's a wonderful way to put it together, because I said, as I said, this job and this live podcast was actually about emotional use or abuse, emotional support or emotional abuse. Like, what are we doing with the dogs? And we barely use word dog in this context today, but that's what actually all of that topic, why do I need an emotional support dog, is coming from. Because all of this, what we were talking about, is related to the outcome of why do I need a support animal in order to cover and go over through my anxieties, my fears, my whatevers, and then is that the right support that I need in order to really grow and really develop myself? It's the people with the emotional intelligence become very easy, emotional suffering becomes very easy prey to the corporations. And now if you buy the dog, and then I'm gonna certify your dog that this dog can be emotional support dog, then you can take it to a plane, then you can take it here, then you can take it there. And from the point of us discussing the lost language of the dog's human interaction and the dogs being pack animals, taking them anywhere out from the cave is the hardest stress that you can put on your dog. And if the dog is, how the dogs get trained to cope with all of that stress? By being shut down.
But I
by being frozen in time.
I thought we talked in one episode that if you can take your dog with you, it's good to take your dog with you. So is there like... Again,
you're taking dog with you because
you need it versus
to take a dog.
Okay.
And this episode is all about why you do feel need to take the dog with you.
So if you're taking the dog with you because you're just taking the dog with you, it's like you do your family, that's a different dynamic versus I'm taking it because I need it. Like a security blanket.
It's again like why do I take a dog to my family? Why I can't leave my dog at home? That's the question. Why you don't trust your dog that your dog is actually doing nothing if the dog doesn't have a separation anxiety?
No. I mean, like if you're going away on a trip or something like that, and there's not someone, like you don't have family or somebody to take care of your dog at your house, and you're able to.
You are taking it. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like everything for the dog is okay until the dog trusts you, and that you are in charge.
Yeah.
And to know people with a low esteem and it's not a criticism. It's just kind of like oftentimes healing comes from facing a reality, telling the truth. The truth is always healing, no matter how disgusting and terrible it is.
I think that's why it's hard for us to look at ourselves. Like it's hard for people to look at themselves. But if they're putting their anxiety on their dog, or they're putting their depression on their, like their dog is taking the heavy load of that. No one really wants to admit that, but I think sometimes it can be a healthy way because it's easier to not want to do that for your dog than it is to look at yourself.
Yeah, that's oftentimes when we say like and go through this family constellation or actually systemic constellation consciousness and developing awareness about how all of this is connected, and what I'm not fixing for myself, I'm going to just transfer it to my kids to deal with that. So that's a huge, maybe I wouldn't do it for myself, but if I know that my action or not doings are opening and kind of like laying the path for my children to live in even more of this, what I'm experiencing, that becomes irresponsible parenting, right?
Right.
And then this is a world of high-end consciousness awareness, the spirituality and awareness of the mankind was never as high as is now. and yet we somehow feel to end up being, you have a life coach's turn wherever you want, you have a therapist of all kind, you have all kind of everything and anything, and yet somehow the people suffer more and more and more and more and more. And Bert Hellinger said why? Is because all of these, majority of these people that are working in the field are working as they are not able to look at their parents in their eyes and to say to their parents, I love you, Father, exactly as you are, and I love you, Mother, exactly as you are, your life and your destiny to yourself, and by uniting those two, I'll take my own with my responsibility for every single step through the life that I take until my grave. And that's when I'm able to say that to my dad that was abusive or alcoholic or never present or died or whatever, then I'm really emotionally mature. And I won't need any emotional support. I'm going to learn how to cope with my things with the right support. I have the friends I always like to support were not the ones that were there for me, chatting with me when I was going through the hardship, because then I actually never got out from the hardship. The ones that I really love, and there are like handful of those around me that I just turn to because I know I'm going to hear the right thing.
Yeah.
And what are the right things? You can do it. I'm by your side, and I can't do it instead of you. You need to understand that you are safe. If you need anything of my support, I'm here for you, but not instead of you. No one can do it instead of you, not the children, not a dog, not a therapist. And which kind of therapist you need to look for? The ones that have a healthy relationship with their fathers.
Yeah, but you can't really know that. That's easy to say in theory, but that's hard to know. But it's something to be aware of. But that's hard. Like, you can't go to therapy. Do you have a good relationship with your father? I mean, I doubt they're gonna.
The first thing would be, it's none of your business. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right? Because that kind of fullness, I need. Yeah. Why would you spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars on the therapy that comes from the perspective, from the point of where the actual support cannot come? That's not a mature. You can have all the knowledge of this world. If as a therapist you didn't heal your own inner child, look at your father and find the divine love that flows through the Father to you.
Yeah.
Without that Father, there is no experience of this physical life.
Yeah, and I think that's
very easy, as you said. It's easy to say, but it's very difficult to do.
I think
difficultness of doing it.
Any authoritative position, though, like a priest, a pastor, a doctor, anybody who's in that position, I think, can misuse that position, that power and authority to help and serve if they don't have that relationship right.
That was the right word. When you say it's not, these people, therapists, are not there to help. They are there to be support and to serve. The doctors are to serve. The priests are to serve. The therapists are to serve. And what we have it's very easy if the background is not settled, if my parents are not settled with me, it's very easy to go ego tree. Oh, I'm a great
God complex. Yeah.
There you go. The God complex. It's me, myself, and I. When you come to a therapy session, you bring your entire family system to a humble person that can agree to be a last in that system. You let the therapist enter your family system. And oftentimes the therapist would be, oh my God, that's because you're a bad father and you should forgive to your father because that's your thing. And then we enter this, who am I to forgive? How do I embrace? Instead of, because it's not it's God's to forgive it. Everyone needs to pay the price for their actions, including my father.
Yeah.
And that's something that we really need to be careful about, because all of this emotional support, dog abuse, is coming from lack of understanding.
It's unresolved. Our unresolved issues.
And we are just
getting And if we don't do them, then we can do a disservice to our dog. And it can look like love, but it can be a burden.
It's an abuse.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you come, but that's again, like same thing. If you ask your parents, did my father love me? Of course he loved me. He now tells me every single time, I love you, thank you so much, hugs, kisses, things like that. And I was growing through my childhood thinking that he doesn't love me, he hates me. And if you ask me, because I wear the shoes of the parent now, if you would ask me, I did my life in sacrifice for my children. If you would ask them, I was the most disrespectful, the most unpresent, the most whatever you want to say negative about a father, I'm sure that both of them can find a lot of words to describe me as a bad father. And if they would know my sleepless night on the trips and my sacrifice of, in my mind, going away from home and making money and trying to pull it together and trying to make it right and never being at home and never be there for them when they needed to cry, they needed the support. And as you said, like, we don't need to be a good mother and a good father. We need to be a happy, joyful parents by being a happy mother and a happy father. Those are the parents that inspire their children.
And healed. And healed. I mean, as much as we can heal ourselves, then we're not burdening and passing that on to our kids. I mean, because I lost my dad a long time ago. And it was an evolution as I grew into adulthood, more of still working through that relationship, even though he's on the other side. And he died young, so he was on his own spiritual journey of like his own healing. And like, you know, had a timeline been different and he lived longer, then we might have been able to get to that place where I would have seen a different version of him. But I got to enough of my own growth and compassion and understanding to go like, oh, so my dad loved me tremendously, but there were certain things he wasn't able to do for me because he wasn't able to do them for himself. And it just...
Yeah. But that's, again, like justifying some...
No, but it helps have compassion and separate so I can still know that he loved me, even though maybe there were things that, you know, could have been done differently. I get to heal through that stuff, but it's like the understanding is different, knowing that it came from an unhealed place, not a place of like intention.
Yeah, there is always that you nailed it now, you know, because when the parents go, I experience grief for my mom leaving. But then at one stage I was just judgmental towards her, and that made me angry. And I just, oh my God, like, Reese, you're stepping into a secondary emotion by judgment. Yeah. Because I said, oh, she shouldn't go to that doctor, she shouldn't go to there, she shouldn't go. And then and then I immediately understand that these emotions that arises within myself, this anger, is not my anger. It's actually her anger of me thinking something should be different. Me thinking that she should or she could. No, she couldn't and she shouldn't. And that's the way she was able to go. And that immediately, when you separate those things, oh, it's not my anger. It's her anger of me taking her burden on myself. Okay, Mom, I love you for who you are. I respect your destiny. I see you leaving and I feel you within my heart. And wherever I go, I'll cherish that love within.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then immediately.
I know. And then, like you said, like giving things back. Because one of my dad said as he was dying was take care of your mother.
Oh, that
was really big. And it took, and you know, he didn't say that to my brothers. It was like to me. So yeah, it takes you a while to get okay with like, that's not my job. And, you know, again, he's gone. So I have to say it I was like, sorry, Dad, not my job. I love you, but you pieced out. You know, if that was the role you wanted, you pieced out. And that doesn't mean that the baton comes to me and that's my job. Like, I can love her and honor her and whatever, but it is like you know, we get to sort through that stuff and see what subconsciously we're carrying that we don't have to carry, so we don't burden ourselves and we don't burden our dogs. Like, I see it so much now, Sasha, when I watch people with their dogs. It's like, you can't unsee it now. Like, I'm just like, oh, that's like codependence. Oh my God. That's like, so that dog isn't like loving you. It's like, it's so heavy with anxiety because it doesn't trust your leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then which kind of leader you can be to the world, which kind of why you are thinking that the right actions you are making to save the world, to save your friend, to save the river, to save
Yes.
animals, to
Yes.
save anyone you're doing, because the
Relax.
perception of the self
Yeah.
is wrong,
Yeah.
right?
And
It's on
I
a
know we need to wrap
path.
this up, but like I think this would be interesting to kind of segment into this, but because this is so similar parts work to the work of internal family systems. It's very similar, like what we're talking about. And like, because when you even
Hmm.
said like the river got a voice, like when you do family constellation, like the concept of we are different parts is a huge thing to understand. So like when you are having these conflicting things going on, like part of you feels this way, part of you feels that way. Those are like real.
Mm.
And you really need to give those things a voice or a place or a presence to be able to integrate so everybody's working together, not one or the other, because then that's just mad chaos inside.
Mm. Yeah, because that is why I have this, this book actually. It's already like 200 pages, and I'm
This is
kind
your
of
book?
like wrapping it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
interconnected. And then I don't know. The subtitle is something around how to find a peace in diverse world, like something like that. I don't know yet. But there is a chapter that talks about really anger. As you said, like how do I deal with the anger? When I experience anger, it's okay. I get angry with you, and then we fight and whatever, and then we move away from each other because I was not able to step in the role of observing my anger when that starts arising. So
Yeah.
then you can't do nothing at that moment,
Yeah.
right? Then you fight. You don't compress it. You fight. You say whatever you need to say, and then when you move away, you just don't take it for granted that you was right and the anger you experienced was yours. What you need to do, as the river got the voice, now you need, yeah, now you are, the family constellation or a systemic constellation gives us a tool. Now I can give the voice to my anger. And then I can see, okay, uh, if I'm Sasha and you are my anger, who are actually you? Um, yeah, and then when you look at your anger, you put I have this practice. I explain this exercise, like you stay in front of the wall, and you see your anger outside yourself on the wall, and you start talking to your anger like it's a person, like it's an entity. And then at one moment, maybe someone or something gonna instead of anger, you're going to start seeing something else or someone else.
Yeah.
Maybe your brother, your father, someone you can't recognize, your great something. You don't need to know who that is. And there is a healing sentence slowly to detach yourself from the anger as a representative,
Mm-hmm.
because the river has her voice
Yeah.
through the represented, but also someone else in the family system can have a voice through my anger.
Yeah.
So I think I'm angry at you. However, what I'm angry at is or it's not my anger. It's anger of someone else. If I do not remain in my relationship with that anger and experience it myself, and I go to the coffee with my friend, and can you imagine what did she told me? And when she told me, I told her everything, and I was so right because I didn't hold anything back. And the friend, what the friend which the real friend, the real support would be, did you observe the situation? Did you talk to your anger? Did you give it a face to the anger? Did you learn about who the anger actually is? No. Which kind of coffees we have? I can't believe. Can you imagine? She did that to me too. And when I was going to the dinner with her, then I saw her and I told her the same exactly. You did the right thing. And I'm so proud of you that you didn't hold it back. You expressed your emotions. That bitch should learn where her place in that company is. And which kind of support that is? That's not a support. It's just increasing invaluable gossip. Uh, which kind of energy is arising from there?
Yeah, no.
Can you see?
Yeah, no, I totally do. And that exercise for me, again, different kind of way that I got there. But when I connected to that part of me, like anger, I actually saw it as this like red, furry kind of monster in a cage. So like he was near, but he wasn't like able to get out. And when, you do more work and stuff and then they could come out and be more integrated, it was such a great feeling because like you said, you have a relationship with it. So it's all part of you. Nothing's being cut off or shamed or stuffed or repressed or whatever. And when everything can kind of exist, then you can observe. Then there's not the reactivity there's like, well, this is interesting. Like, I'm not liking this. Why? What's going on here? What's coming up? Where is it mine? Is it something else? Like, what is this? And you can actually navigate things then instead of just this resistance, like you talked about earlier. Like, you don't have to protect yourself the same way. You can actually know you're protected and listen and ask and discover.
Because that's the you said, like, we need to know, we would completely differently act if we would feel grounded in a support.
Yeah.
And if we know that I'm not here with you, it's not Sasha and Shannon, it's a generation and a generation and a generation. Do you know that actually in only 1,000 years of our life, we had like 8.5 billion people as our ancestors, direct parents that needed to be born in order for me and you to sit here and chat.
Yeah.
So 53 generation, it's already a billions of the people.
That's crazy.
And it's not me. And now, how do you feel the support of all of them?
Well, and
because that's
like reframing it. Because I think when we did the family constellation, like, they were all on my back. And then now
there you go.
It's like, woo, you guys can have that back, but I'm happy to have you here for the love and support because we are family, and thank you for getting me here, and thank you for everything you did to get me here. And so you get to place things properly to what's yours to take forward and what's yours to leave behind, but honoring everything that is. And it really feels beautiful when you do it in that way. Like, that's where it feels the harmony. And that's where it feels love. And we're not fighting for our place and fighting to be heard and fighting to be known. It's like we give that. We get to give that to each other and our ancestors. And then we also get to give them the things that are not ours. Yeah.
And then when you was talking about that fear, that's like a, red monster being caged.
But he's great.
And then
like, by the way, no, like, I just have to say, like, he is loving and kind and everything, but he like had those exterior qualities of anger, like big and red and fiery, but he's actually like this gentle giant of protection.
That's what I kind of, there is one guided meditation that's used in the family constellation made by my mentor, Vlado Ilic. And he said, like, there is a meditation where you go to the journey and then you experience the life and everything. But then the second moment is actually you end up in a cave and then you meet this monster. And that monster is actually made of all of your fears and all of your uncertainties and everything that you actually can't accept and embrace. And as your journey through that cave and interaction with that monster goes through, he gets to look much nicer. And on the end, he becomes a beautiful blue dragon that takes you out from the cave.
Yeah.
So what's interesting there to see is that anger. Can you imagine you feeling angry on someone or something? And that intensity of the emotions, can you imagine that becoming actually the resource of yours?
Well, that's what
instead
happened.
Of being a burden?
That's what happened.
That's exactly what's happening
what happened
at your point.
Is now I feel like I'm more resourced and I feel more protected in myself because I allowed anger to exist. Because for me,
Perfect.
I was afraid of it, so I wouldn't express it. Because I had seen what I had seen people do in anger had hurt people and hurt me. So to have a different relationship and realize I can do it differently. I can have anger because anger is telling me something. It's informative and it's helpful and I need it. But I get to be with it. It doesn't like take over and do bad things. It's like it's there to support me and help me in another way. So then again, it's the harmony. It needs to be there. Like it needs to exist.
Because it's something or someone that need to be accepted. And when we do that, then it become a source of our life, resource. And then also you said it very nicely there when you said, like, I don't want to fight against that. And that's exactly where you want to leave yourself in experiencing it as a primary emotion.
Yeah.
With yourself, by yourself, knowing that you are supported. And wherever you can find the support of that, I know, oh my God, I know that if I would need something to turn to someone, my father, my mother would be here behind me immediately. But there is a friend also that I can turn to with knowing that she will not push me into a secondary emotion by her comments, thoughts, feeling sorry for me, or
Yeah.
putting, and that's the way of obviously very responsible, respectful way of dealing with the emotions. And again, just let's conclude here, because I think like
I know.
Vedran is already telling me 16 times like messages, and
Stop,
wrap it up. And but
stop.
I can't stop talking about this
I know.
because it's so nice. And I think like all of this we need to be aware of before we are able to make a judgment on the do I need a family support animal, and why do I need it, and what I'm doing with that. This is a huge burden and responsibility, and the easy trap for the corporate narrative. You need a support dog and you need to take your dog wherever you go, and let us certify your dog
Yeah.
because
So there's a
then
right
you can take
way.
it to the airport and everywhere.
There's a right way to
It's
have
a,
them in that role, and then an unhealthy way to have them in that role.
yes, and it's very, how can I say, it's very bad support. It's not a right support for the place where you actually at. But if we do a constellation thing, the people owning the companies that offer certification in the family dynamic of the dogs being emotional support dogs, if they would be honest to themselves, they need to reveal the relationship with the father, and then to stay with that for a moment and to understand which kind of harm they are doing to others.
Right.
Because this whatever unfair world we live in, and now I think that I need to go out there and save everyone and be for everyone. I had a long track record of being there like a wrong support to my students, and the wrong support to my friends, and wrong support to my kids, because I was thinking I'm doing a good job.
Oh gosh.
However,
I still feel like
sooner
that's
or
a
later,
constant learning. I still feel like I'm
yeah,
learning that, like what's the right amount of support and what's too much.
this is the exactly words that you can say to someone: I'm by your side, hold my hand. It's very safe for you to feel you are not alone. And also the portion of the statement need to go there: I can't do it instead of you. And it's safe to be angry. It's safe to feel scared. It's safe. All of that, it's safe because I'm by your side. So you're not alone. Even if you can't feel your parents, I'm by your side. So slowly you're going to come there and you're going to get there. And then let's see what's the next step. What's the next right healing step for you? But that no therapist can tell you that what to do. It's you to find out with the support, the right support of the people. Otherwise, it's just gonna create these zombies that gonna hurt someone, keep hurting the people that are hurted, that hurt the other people, and this chain of hurt the world will never heal.
Yeah.
And it just kind of like that's that's why we'll keep having more wars and more all kind of interaction with each other that's not healthy, and it's not contributing to the better
I
world.
think that's a lot why
Yes.
our country right now is so polarized too. It says the same kind of processes playing out, where rather than taking responsibility for ourselves and our own lives and our own emotions and our own healing, like that would be the world cure.
That would be the world cure, and that's the world peace. That's the path to the world peace. Is a silent activism, inner activism, where if I want to change the world, I need to change myself. Because as you said at one point of this our podcast, you said like, I disagree. I don't agree with a lot of things, but I can see them with a compassion.
Yeah.
And someone I don't know who said that, and I just don't know who I'm talking about. In the big scheme, in the big world movements, bad and good, are always happening in some big reason that benefits much more people that it hurts. Even the wars and things like that, they make movements.
Yeah.
The America would never become an America if there was something bad not happening in Europe. So all that people are moving and migrating around, and then they came here. They did whatever they did. Just to say this, it says like, and then the final phrase of this would be that. What would be the final phrase of this? I need to be inspired by you again.
Well, I was just going to come back to the compassion piece because I really am like humbled by how much my peace has expanded and deepened by not going through this healing process and being really uncomfortable in the uncomfortable feelings, but allowing it to where you get to the other side and you give yourself compassion and understand like the reason why things happened, where you did the best you could at that time. You chose what you did with the resources you had and the knowledge you had at that time. So even though you like it's cringeworthy, and you're just like, oh my God, or whatever it is, missed opportunities, blah blah blah. I mean, like it's different things for everybody. But when you can sit with all of those feelings that have not been acknowledged or not been felt, and rather than beat yourself up for things you didn't do or you think didn't get right or you missed this or whatever was passed on to you from your mom and dad, certain beliefs, and instead of being angry, start seeing yourself with compassion. It really is mind-blowing how it changes your capacity to have compassion for everyone else. And you don't have to work at it. Like you just have it. Like it's just like it's now in you because you have compassion with yourself and you have love with yourself, and not in a cheesy way like self-love. Like it's a true understanding of like the incredible miracle of how we've gotten here, right? Like you mentioned, of all the things that had to happen to get us here, all the things that we have in our life, so much that we have to be grateful for. And of all of the things that we feel like we got wrong or we missed or we're frustrated with ourselves for, like when you start looking at those parts of yourself kindly and compassionately and forgiving yourself and healing, like the color that comes back in your life and the way the integration comes from all those parts of you've shut down or shut off or ignored or numbed or whatever. And everybody gets to come back to the table and you're self-led and you're kind to all the parts of you, then it's like, it's just so much more effortless to be able to see the rest of the world that way. So I don't need to be mad at somebody who's still racist. I'm not okay with that, but I can see it through a different lens of, oh, they probably had this passed down in their family and something, all wherever they got to from that. And I can approach them and talk to them about it a different way rather than being angry and condescending or judgmental or whatever. It comes from the heart. And the heart, like love truly is so transformative. Like it's really hard for something not to change if it's in the presence of someone who is loving and accepting. And again, it's not accepting of maybe you don't believe that belief, you don't believe that action. It's not okay. And yet there is the approach of that they're not a horrible person or a horrible human being or a horrible thing. It's the stuff that's happening that's horrible. And it's weird how that stuff starts to transcend and break these patterns. But it really is more simple that if we would deal with our own stuff, we each have the capacity to have that compassion in such a wider realm of differences. And that really, it sounds so like kumbaya, but it's not, because it's hard work. It's hard work to face your stuff and have the courage to do that. So when people are doing that, like that's not weak, that's not sissy, that's not all those horrible things that people try to make it down, because they don't want to deal with it. When you really can have the courage to stand in the feelings that are difficult and work through them, it's life-changing for you and it's life-changing for everyone in your world. And like animals, the plant, the universe, like it is, the vibration affects everything around you.
It's like a beautiful orchestra that you have a violin and you have an oboe and you have a contrabass and you have a drums and you have a trumpets, and everything of that sounds so differently, and you need a different techniques and different ways to play with them until the conductor doesn't comes in, the violin
Yeah.
the oboe give that's A, and then entire orchestra tune themselves, and the conductor comes out, and all of those diversity ends up bringing a beautiful music that can take
Totally.
us, miles away. So that's, and there is also one thing I wanted to take, and you
I
just,
was gonna say, just
open
remind.
again a nice door. Kind of like, okay, better, I'm sorry, we are finishing and closing up. I don't know what's the name of the guy. Was this was a very good Hawaiian therapist that brought Ho'oponopono. I don't know, do you
I
know,
know.
did you
Yeah.
heard of that? Yeah. Thank you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and I love you.
Yeah.
And then he was invited to some like a prison hospital where the worst kind of criminals were, and a lot of no one could survive working in that environment from the personnel, because they were like, just don't know how to deal with all of that.
Yeah.
And then he said, like, he accepted that, and he came there, and he didn't end up coming out from his office. He didn't end up having any interviews with those guys. He was just reading their records, and he said, like, the energy within that little community slowly started to shift. The people started to behave differently. A lot of them were released, and on the end, that institution should be shut down. And when they asked him, like, what have you done, and he said, I was just working on myself. I was trying to find myself, which is hidden in these papers
Yeah.
of the records of the people in this institution. And by slowly integrating one by one of them within myself, the healing happened within themselves, and they will be able to move on. Because I recognized it's not them, it's me. It's not, if I want to heal them, I need to heal them in me, so they feel what you said, that they feel accepted with their diversity, they feel welcomed, they feel not need to act diverse anymore to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's the path towards this beautiful diverse world, like blues and reds, like Trumps and Bidens, I don't know whom, like these
Well,
diversity
all
of
our
not
different
being able.
religions, all our different
There you
cultures, all our
go.
different genders, like
Everything
it's
on
like
a, but
all of it.
ev- everything on a spectrum of the far left or
Yeah.
far right, how that's both to center without violence, without creating more violence. And that's where the healing of me facing my own self is coming from. And that's the way. And I think, again, for almost 2 hours,
I know.
even if it's not more, we are talking, and we are talking about everything. And the topic of this was like emotional support or emotional abuse, and all of these little como se diz fioca? Drawers needed to be open in order to have our listeners and viewers open the understanding of importance of and reality. It's not just my dog is certified, so I can take him to my plane, and with me in this, I feel very compassionate for those people, but I feel more compassionate
Gosh,
because for those
that's what I
dogs,
was getting ready to
because the
say. I'm
dog
like,
doesn't have a
yeah, I
choice.
was gonna ready to say
The
that it's
dog
like
doesn't have a choice.
when people say like deal. I almost gonna cuss. Deal with your shit. And they say deal with your own stuff so you don't put it on other people. I don't know. Like somehow I feel like that kind of gets lost on people. Like yeah, yeah, yeah. But when you think about deal with your stuff so you don't put it on your dog, I feel like that goes to people's heart a little bit more because they are dependent and it is kind of like the children, right? You don't want to pour all your crap on them. You don't want to burden them with all of your unresolved stuff. And the only way to not do that is to deal with yourself. It's a win-win because you're healthier,
It is.
they're healthier. So, okay, people, let's go,
Okay, let's go. You are going to some croissants and a cappuccino, I guess, and we're going to go to swim a little bit because I guess that's what you do in Paris and in Miami.
I'm going to the
so-
sea next week, so I'll be in the water next week. But yes, I'm going to go.
Oh my God.
I know.
There you go.
I'm telling you,
I
the
can't wait to meet you.
Mediterranean, though, water is so healing, so beautiful. Like The ocean, you just got to get in it. It just is. It's just so healing.
I must tell you, the ocean now in Miami is like a hot tub. You go in the hundreds inside the water.
I believe
it's 100. It's kind of like, and it's like, oh my God, because we lived in LA for a year or something like that.
Yeah,
so when you
the
go
water's
to that Venice
there.
beach and things like that, it's kind of like, oh my God. And now on contrary, now here you have this little pond of hot tub, and it's still salty and it's wavy and it's sandy. It's beautiful. It's a paradise.
It's beautiful.
So
I know. I think it's
thank
great.
you everyone
So
for
go
tuning
enjoy
in
your
this
paradise.
week. Sorry?
I said, go enjoy your paradise. I'll go enjoy my gluten-free croissant and espresso.
Okay, so thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope this was a very thought-provoking episode like all of ours. We love you. Until next time. Thank you, Shannon, for your wonderful support on this journey. It's a right way to get me through this with all of my lines of thoughts and thinkings and everything. So
it's good to get to unpack all this with you. I hope it's beneficial to everyone listening, because I think this is the journey we get to be on together to explore and discover.
Hot topics on the
more hot topics to come.
Yes. Bye everyone. Bye.